Hey guys, hello, thank you so much for joining in. Welcome to my home. If you hear my child in the background, we are attempting to try to put him to bed. This is his nap time, so hopefully he'll go to sleep. Cross your fingers. So there is a little bit of a delay, and I know if I may be talking, you guys are probably not listening to this part yet. So just know that there is some sort of a delay that's happening with the video. Sorry about that. This is going to be my very first time with Google Hangouts and sharing it out on YouTube. So bear with me. This is like a trial run for me. So this will be exciting to actually get to talk with some of you guys and see some of your comments that you are posting up. So please leave comments. Oh my gosh, there are so many of you that are chiming in. Hey guys, okay, so here's kind of the whole idea of this broadcast that I wanted to do. One, I did want to try it out on YouTube and see how it went with all of you. Hello. Oh, thank you. So I wanted to try it out so that I could try to do future ones of these, like hopefully in the future. Two, I've been having a ton of questions from just college students in general, just saying, hey, from Las Vegas, hey, I go to Vegas all the time. Thanks for joining in. So I get a ton of emails from college students just saying that, you know, I remember when I had to like have a teacher answer a bunch of questions and you had to interview a teacher. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to be able to do it for some of the college students that I know have been sending me emails. Hello from Australia. Oh, hi. Okay, so what I've done is for those who have gone on ahead and sent me an email with a bunch of questions, I'm going to start answering some of those questions first. And then I will kind of go back through the feed and start looking at some of the other questions that everyone else has left me. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and please leave your questions down. I'm kind of monitoring it and trying to keep them down. If you see that I look down, it's because I have like my paper and my notes and stuff. So I'm going to constantly be looking down. Okay, so here's the first email that I got out. And this one's from Caitlin. Caitlin, I hope you're in this chat. So this one is for you. I'm going to answer kind of her questions. The very first one says, what makes a good teacher? This one I feel like is so hard to answer because everybody has a different idea of a good teacher, right? Not everyone is going to think that a good teacher has the same qualities. In my opinion, here's what I feel like is a really good teacher. And I think me and my partner teacher think the exact same way, because a lot of the times we'll sit down and say, you know, I want to be the teacher that I want my son to have. I want to be that teacher. So whatever teacher that I would want for my child, that's how I want to be for all of my other kids that are in my classroom. I feel like a good teacher is one that's passionate, a one that's understanding, a one that is patient. You have to have a ton of patience for this job. There are times where sometimes I feel like I'm losing my patience and I have to kind of step back a little bit, take a deep breath, and just rethink things, because a lot of the times you don't know where certain kids are coming from and the environments that they're coming from. So you have to have a lot of patience for them. Something else I think is like passion and dedication, understanding that education is constantly changing. Nothing stays the same. You are expected to change with the trends that are happening in education. And you have to be open to that. Some people are not very open to change in a classroom setting, and they want to keep doing it the way that they've been doing it for a really long time. But unfortunately, that's not our world, and we can't continue to do that. So we have to also look at how our world is changing and how we as teachers need to be changing our teaching in the classroom. So that's kind of my opinion of what a good teacher is. The next one is, what is the best lesson you have ever taught and what made it good? So the best lesson, yes, patience is the key. The best lesson that I think that I feel like I enjoyed, I have a lot of really favorite lessons that I really, really love. And I'm gonna say that this one was last year, and it was in kindergarten, and it was around this time, and I wanted to do a project-based learning where I kind of gave my kids an essential question and I said, okay, now I want you to figure out how to solve it. So my like essential question for them in kindergarten was, if you were to plan a feast for Thanksgiving, how would you plan it? Very broad, so we kind of had to do a lot of research, and I kind of I took them along that path of research. They researched a lot about Thanksgiving. What was it about? And then we went into them actually planning their own feast, which it was so cute. Like they took out it was in public, like we had Publix because it was Alabama. So I had like a Publix ad for Thanksgiving food, and they had to sit there and cut little pieces out, and they made their little grocery list, and we kind of sent out the letters to parents, and they got to create their little outfits to really kind of show the first Thanksgiving. So it was really, really sweet. And I felt like that was a really great lesson. It was very hands-on, had them doing a lot of the research. So it was exciting to see that. That is probably my favorite lesson. I felt like the best parts of it too, again, was just that they were researching, that they had a guiding question that was going to kind of take them along the way, and they were doing all the planning. I just kind of sat back and I just said, hey, you guys do it. So I gave them the research, we had the books, and it was fantastic. I hope that kind of answered your question. I kind of go off on tangents sometimes. Sorry, y'all. Okay. Next one is, what role does technology play in your teaching? So this is really big for me because I have one-to-one iPads in my classroom, and we get a lot of the times the parents will ask, say, well, I don't want my child on an iPad all day long. Well, you know what? I don't either. I don't want my kid on an iPad all day long and them not actually, putting use to their handwriting, they're practicing all those different skills. So I totally understand people, and my use of technology is a means of enhancing their learning. It is to enhance, okay? So let's think of it as I give my kids a writing assignment and they are completing the writing process, and at the very end of it, that's when they are enhancing the final product. So it is only to enhance. It is not to take place of the learning. It is not to take place of anything else, and it's also a choice. I give my kids that choice of, all right, for reading responses, you can either, one, write it in your writing journal or reading journal, that's a choice, or two, you can put it onto Notability, copy it, and paste it into our Schoology document where they can have that. So I leave it as a choice for kids. And sometimes too, like I have kids who can't write it down on paper, but it's so much easier for them to actually use it as technology. So with technology, think of it as a way of just enhancing their learning and enhancing the final product of their learning, but not really taking place of it, if that makes sense. Okay, here's another one. What do you hope to achieve with your students? So I think like the biggest thing that I want to achieve with them is I want them to be really good citizens. Like that is my ultimate goal, because I keep thinking, okay, these kids are going to be adults one day, and I'm really hoping that they are good citizens to our country, and that is my main goal in life, and we have a lot of those talks all the time. So I will sit down, and I think we had this talk on Thursday too. We sat down and I said, what kind of an adult do you want to be when you get older? What kind of a person do you want to be? What kind of a citizen do you want to be to the United States? Because ultimately that's what's going to happen. You're going to become a citizen. You're going to contribute something to society, and you need to think now as what you want to be when you get older and start kind of working towards that. So that is my ultimate goal. I will teach them everything, hopefully, along the way, but I want them to be a good citizen in the end. What current trends in public education satisfy and dissatisfy you? Okay, so I am one of those people that loves to jump on any kind of bandwagon that's out there. Yes, I do have a pet. I have a boxer. I just wanted to throw that one in there. I have a dog who's boxer. Okay, so I will say that I'm one person that likes to jump on any kind of bandwagon and try it out in the classroom. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Oh, well, you throw it out and you just keep going with what you're doing. But I have certain ones that I love, and I have certain ones that I don't. The one that I'm currently loving is that, we need to look at how our kids are learning, and we need to make their learning very specific to what they need. So let's say a kid, if you're looking at your group of students and you have kids who really, really understand problem and solution, why are you teaching them problem and solution? Why are they sitting there learning problem and solution? They don't need it. move them on, get them doing something else. And then the kids who do need problem and solution, that's when you pull them and you're working with them on problem and solution. You don't want to give students something that they don't need. You're wasting their time, and you want to make sure that the time that you are having with them and the time that they're there is valuable and it's important. So that's kind of my favorite one that I'm doing right now. The other one that I had a love-hate relationship with it is the Daily 5. I'm sorry. Like, okay, so the Daily 5, some people really, really love it. I am not one that loves the Daily 5. I know it's been out. Oh, his name is Bane, and my son's name is Blaine. How much do you love that? Isn't that interesting? So it's interesting in my house. So anyways, moving on. But the Daily 5, like, I've tried it, and then at the same time, I'm just like, they're not reading. I want to give my kids a lot of opportunities to just be able to just be able to read. And I felt like I was wasting their time with all of these different stations, and it wasn't important and it wasn't valuable, and so I just kind of got rid of it. So if you love the Daily 5, I'm sorry. I'm glad that it works for you. And that's the thing with education trends. Like, do what's best for you and what works for you. You know, there are going to be things that I don't like because they don't work for me as a teacher and how I teach, but it may very well work for you. And hey, kudos on that. Like, if it works for you, do it. And if it works for your kids, that's even more important, you know, so long as it works for them. So what are some challenging aspects of classroom management? I'm going to have to say that it is when it takes away from my teaching is the hardest thing for me. I'm going to have kids with behaviors. You're going to have kids with behaviors. We're all going to have kids with behaviors. Like, it's just going to happen. And for people to think, you know, that we need more support and we need people to come in and help us with that, I mean, there's a little bit of truth in there, but it's not going to happen. So you have to kind of think of how are you going to go about some of these situations. And there were, I think it was Thursday, that I just wasn't able to teach for 30 minutes because I was dealing with an issue, and that happens. Like, you're going to have to deal with it. It's going to be fine. I got my kids started on something else. I was dealing with another issue. The world will move on. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing for me. I'm going to stop and answer this question. Do you feel a lot of pressure from standardized testing? No. I don't. Here's why. Because I'm teaching my standards. Every day I make sure that I teach my standards, and I'm making it really important for my kids. Like, I'm making it every day when they're going into the classroom and they're doing things, what they're doing is very challenging, and it's going to be hard. I want it to be hard for them. So I don't feel the pressures of standardized testing. I am very lucky to be in a district that doesn't put pressures on us for standardized testing, so I'm very grateful for that. But I feel like if you teach the standards and you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, then you have nothing to worry about. So I wanted to stop and answer that one. Okay, so how do you accommodate different student abilities and learning styles in your teaching? I think this goes back to when I was talking about some of the trends, and that is that I just make everything very specific to what they're working on. So when I did my Pirate Day, each group had folders, and it had all of the different tasks that I wanted them to complete. And so each of those folders had things that those group of students were specifically working on. So that is very individualized. It is very differentiated, I think is a term, but individualized is better. So that's kind of what I do as far as like student abilities. And I know that I have like a few that are on 504s or IEPs. I just make sure that I'm in compliance with what I'm supposed to be doing. So if I have kids that are needing some type of paper, I give them that paper. If I have kids who are needing to have a grip, or they have to have some type of timer, or they cut down a certain amount of work, then I just do it. I mean, I have to think about what it is that's best for them and what exactly do they need and how are they going to feel successful in the classroom. So that's kind of what I do. How do you involve families and the community in your classroom? So at the beginning of the year, like, we have them fill out a whole bunch of stuff. And I think a lot of the times, like, PTOs or PTAs will do this. So I had them fill out like a list. Are you going to be a home VIP? Are you going to be a school VIP? Or will you, will you come and be like a room mom, or will you do class parties? And they'll fill that out. and then we'll have kind of constant communication. Some other ways that I've done it in the past is we've done giveaways, and I got this from, and if she's watching this video, hey, I got this from my old teacher person that was next to me in kindergarten, and she had this fantastic idea of, like, you have a question that you would give out. And during Thanksgiving last year, I gave out the question of, give me a tradition that you and your family have during this time. So people would send in like little cards, writing it down. It could have been as simple as just an email returned back. And so every day we would sit down and we talk about different traditions and different ways that we all celebrate different things. And at the end of that week, I threw all of those people who had sent something inside of a little bucket, and I mixed it up, and I had like giveaways. So I had different games, and this can be something easy. Like, I had games that they were doing in math, and I just made another copy, and I sent home some dice or sent home some cards, and I said, here's your, your gift for sending in something and being involved in the classroom. It's something as simple as that they get a freebie, and then they're really excited about it. I think she even did, like, she went all out. She went and found like in Walmart you can find like those $5 movies. Like, she found a $5 movie, and then she ordered them a pizza. Like, she's awesome. So that was a really great way of getting them involved and getting them to kind of participate in some things in the classroom. How do you establish a relationship with your students and motivate them? That is going to be community. Our morning meeting is extremely important to us. We do not stop our morning meeting for anything. So that 15-20 minutes that we have is building that classroom community, and we do it from the get-go. I mean, I like to think of it, how many of you have watched Full House or like Family Matters, and you remember when that swaying, sweet, cute music came on, and you're like, oh, they're about to get really like intense here. And so they would sit down and they would start like talking with each other as a little family. That's kind of how I view it in my classroom. Like, we literally sit down and we have that talk. Okay, let's add some, I want everybody else to come up with solutions. Because if I'm constantly the one that's saying, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to do it, this is what we should be doing, what are they getting from it? They're not trying to problem solve. They're not the ones that are coming up with the solutions. Have them do that. I know, right? I loved Full House too. Have them do it. Let them be the ones that are coming up with the problems. You may have to guide them because they don't know. They've never done this before. This will be very, very new for them. But have them actually come up with all of the solutions to the problems, and just say, hey, you are really brilliant. Am I really blurry? I'm sorry, I'm trying not to be blurry. But have them come up with some of those solutions and guide them along the way with it, and have them, come up with an anchor chart or something. If here's the problem, here's what we think are some of the solutions that you could do with it. So I hope that helps with that. How do you establish, oh, I already answered that one. Okay, so here's the next one, and this one's from Lindsay, and she emailed me, and this, I kind of hope I'm answering this as best as I can. So if you're on here, I hope I answer it to the best of my ability. So the question kind of in a sense was that she is wanting to know how she can create a philosophy of education without sounding cynical. And here's what my thoughts for you is that a philosophy of education is what you believe, how you believe students are going to learn, and what you believe a teacher should be doing. So it is your beliefs on how you think kids are learning and how you think you are executing some of that education. I did my philosophy of education like a really, really long time ago, and I remember having to bring in all of these different like who was it, Pavlov, and just all of these other people into it. And I can tell you now that my philosophy of education is totally different. I say just try to remain positive with you. Focus more on not how you're feeling in the moment of frustration that you're feeling right now, because I get that you're feeling frustrated. There is nothing worse than executing a lesson and it is a huge lesson and it all go wrong. it is probably one of the worst feelings ever, and I've done it and I've been there before too. So I completely understand. But leave that aside and think about, how do you feel students should learn, and how do you feel you as a teacher should execute those lessons, if that makes sense. I really hope that helps, and I'm really trying to make sure that I am giving you the best answers. So I hope that helped. So yeah, philosophy, I've never used it. I've never used my philosophy of education since then. Like, it changes. It's constantly changing. And that's the part with philosophy of education. You know, at the same time, I know you should have an idea of what you believe as an educator, but it's changing. It's constantly changing. How I felt 1 year is totally different from how I felt, 2 years ago. So I completely understand. Okay, so what books are you reading? Well, I read some different books. Right now I'm reading, and I can't, Teach Like a Pirate. Is it Teach? There's Teach Like a Pirate, and there's Learn Like a Pirate. It's behind me. That's why I was looking. So Learn Like a Pirate is one of them that I am reading with my partner teacher. And then I'm reading Took right now because I am kind of going along with the 40-book challenge in my classroom with my students. So I'm in the middle of Took, which is actually really good. And since I'm finally having a weekend where I can be at home all weekend and not have to go out and do a bunch of stuff, I'm hoping that I can get finished with that book and move on. So those are the two reads that I'm actually doing right now. The Learn Like a Pirate, the Learn Like a Pirate book is more about getting students in charge of the classroom and having students be engaged in, kind of taking ownership of it. So like, let's say, you have kids that are going wild and crazy. There's going to be a student that says, hey, you know what? No, we're not doing this. And they kind of call the class back together and get them back in order. So I really, really like that. I'm really interested in seeing where it goes. How do you come up with morning messages? So my morning messages, the way that I come up with them, well, one, I like to have alliteration just because I think it's cute. I mean, there's really no good reason why I have alliteration, but I just like to have alliteration just because I think it's cute. And then two, I kind of think about what are some of the things that I need to talk about with my students. So I just want to make sure that they are, whatever it is that I'm working on or need to talk to them about, whether it be about community building, whether it be about something that they're learning or just getting them motivated for the day, that's kind of where I go with it. I hope that helps. Are you doing book groups with your students? Yes, right now I have a group of students who are doing book clubs. I've chosen several different chapter books that have really strong characters and character traits in them and how the character changes over a period of time. Some of them are, let me think, I think Esperanza Rising was one of them. Tuck Everlasting was another one. Ella Enchanted, just because it went along with the fairy tales that we're doing. And there is one more, and I cannot think of it for the love of me, so I'm really sorry. How much would you say that you get done on the weekends? For school, not a lot. For home, not a lot, apparently. I don't get a ton done during the weekends. Weekends is time for me to hopefully rest and recoup and get ready for the week. Lately, most weekends, I haven't been getting a lot of work done, so I try to get as much done as possible during the week at school. So. Okay, another question that I had was from Laura that sent me another question. She says, what is her question? What is your opinion on the importance of play for cognitive development in both inside and outside the classroom? Okay, so cognitive development is your ability to be able to think and understand, right? When you really think of it like as it broken down like that, your ability to think and understand, you're going to think the importance of that is really important, right? Because you want kids to be able to think for themselves. You want them to be able to understand the things that are happening around them. So I would say it's extremely important. Giving them as many experiences as possible. So for kindergarten, we did a lot of things that was just play, and that was just them kind of hanging out and being able to go outside and look at the different environments and making certain observations because you want them to be able to do that. So I think at one point we went around to daycares right before I left Alabama, and they were talking with different daycares around and saying, "Hey, this is kind of what we expect from everyone." So I know that a lot of daycares have like programs, and they have all of these like kindergartens and pre-K and all of these where they're trying to chock kids full of information. And that's all well and good, but at the same time, they need to just be able to play. They need to be able to observe things. They need to be able to build some of those social behaviors. They need to also build those fine motor skills, because that's what's going to help them in kindergarten the most. So I feel like it's extremely important. The ability to be able to think and process and understand the surroundings around you is extremely important. And I feel like it's left kindergarten a lot. Kindergarten is no longer kindergarten. It is now where first grade used to be, and now first grade is where second grade. So we're expecting a lot. Is it freezing? It is very cold. It is extremely cold. But we're expecting a lot of kindergarten. And so giving the kids, and I feel like at home too, moms are so wanting to make sure their kids know all their letters, making sure that their kids know how to do every little piece that they need to do before they go into kindergarten. But at the same time, it's so important for them to just be able to, have a talk and just, it's just play. Play is still learning at the exact same time. It's just the way that you approach it. So, okay, so now I'm going to kind of look through some of the questions, because those were all of the emails that I had. Am I an introvert? Yes, I am. I could stay right there all day long. I don't like to go to parties. I've never liked going to parties. So yes, I am very much of an introvert. Do you have anxiety? Yes. I am very anxious in life in general too. So I don't know how much more detail I can go into that, but yes, I do have it every once in a while. It gets worse during certain times, and like certain things that are expected of me. So okay, so by the way, I forgot to mention this. Don't forget, I have a poll that will somehow click somewhere up here. I want you to try to answer some of those questions, because I want to kind of get an idea of what you guys are looking for, and who you are and who my audience is. So if you have a second, just answer some of those polls. I think they're like in this general area typically, so they'll kind of pop out like a little card. So take some time and answer those. Okay, let's see, what else do I have? How do you avoid taking everything personally as a teacher? That was hard for a very, very long time, actually. I am a very sensitive person, and I am a very emotional person. So it's hard. It is very hard for me to not take things personally. And I will even tell you that sometimes I have kids in my classroom that do certain things, and I take it personally. And I have to kind of work with that, but just inside of myself, and I do the best that I can. I mean, I don't know how else I can really answer that, to be honest. I'm sorry. I do my best with it. I don't try to share a ton of my feelings whenever it comes to certain matters that happen in the classroom. And then I just battle my own demons out of my head, I guess is the best way I can explain it. Sometimes they are disrespectful, and sometimes they do things, but at the same time, like, I think, you know what, look at where you're coming from. The way that you're acting right now is because either one, it's something that's been learned, or two, there's something else that's happening at home or in the classroom or between friends. Like, there's always a reason why somebody is acting this way. So I try to also think about that as well. And then there's times where, it's easier to brush off than other moments. And I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've had my moments where I've come home and I've cried to my husband because I took something a little bit too personally. So it happens. It happens. We're humans. It's going to happen. And I feel like teachers in general take things so much more personally than any other profession, because as a teacher, you care so much and you want to give so much of yourself to these kids, and a lot of the times you're like, well, they're not even appreciating it, or oh, they're being so mean to me, they just don't like me. And it's not that. Like, it's not that they don't like you. It's either they have something else that's going on in their life that you just are not aware of, or, you know, there's something that's going on between friends that you're not aware of. So there's always a reason. There's always a reason. Let me see. What do you like the most about being a teacher? Oh, that's hard, because I like hanging out with the kids. I like seeing them grow. I like seeing them happy and smile and enjoying learning and enjoying what we're doing in the classroom. Like, that's probably the best part about it. You know, it's that aha moment when something finally clicks and they get it. Or, you know, there's the moments that when you teach them to do something, or they pick up on some of your behaviors and you start seeing that they're doing that, and you're like, oh, that's cute, they got that from me. So that's probably some of the best parts. Did you ever feel pressure of teaching to the test? I answered this about the standardized testing, but no, I don't feel the pressures at all. I feel like if you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing and you're giving your all at all time, there's no pressure. So no, I don't feel the pressure. That's kind of how I've always believed it. And that's the same thing with some places have, I can't even remember what it's called. Like, after so many years, then you are like grandfathered in. You can't really, they can't just fire you. And I can't think of what it's called now. Sorry. But the same thing with that. Like, if they, tenure, that's what it's called. So tenure, if you have tenure in your district or in your state, like, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in the first place, like, you don't need to worry about tenure. If you're giving it your all and you're showing them your absolute best, there's no reason to worry. No reason at all. Can you please write the name of the books that you are reading right now? I think the way that I'm going to do this is probably put it up on my YouTube channel for a little bit, or for good. I'm not really sure yet, but I will leave a link to some of the books that I'm reading down below, if that helps. Are there any other books that you would recommend teachers to read? So as like part of professional books, I would definitely recommend Stephanie Harvey's books are phenomenal. Debbie Miller's books are also phenomenal, and those are some of my absolute favorites. If you're looking at inspiration of just being inspired in like behavior management, look at Ron Clark's books. Those are extremely inspirational and will kind of help you think of how to handle behavior management. The Morning Meeting book is also really good, just as far as like building some of that classroom community. So I would definitely recommend some of those. Do you have a teacher grade book? No, I do not have a teacher grade book. The way that I do it is, we don't have report cards, to be honest, in my district either, which is really nice, because again, we're like looking at what students specifically need. So everybody's kind of on different levels. You know, I may have kids who are still working at a 3rd grade skill, and then I have kids who are working on a 4th grade skill, and they're all on different skills at the exact same time. So I tend to just keep a checklist. And if you've seen some of my previous vlogs where I've talked a little bit about the leveling it up, that's kind of how I'm gauging what it is that my students are getting and not getting. So we look at just mastery in general, instead of, well, they kind of got it, let's just move them on because they kind of got it. No, we expect mastery. So that's kind of where I look at it. How do you help your kids that are really struggling? You break it down, and then you really think about, okay, well, if they're not getting this, I need to look a little bit more deeply into that standard, which is why I like breaking down standards so much, is because it really kind of takes that huge standard and then it gives you all of the little pieces that are right below it. So summarizing for 4th grade standard is not just summarizing. You know, you're able to identify the exposition, which is that characters, the setting, and the important information. Well, I have a lot of kids who can't get that important information because we're so stuck on from K through 3, where it was more of, are you listing the important events? Are you able to tell them in sequence? It's that oral retelling versus now you're digging them a little bit deeper and So a lot of them are struggling with, okay, well, what is it that the author really and truly needs to know before we can actually move on to the actual story? Like, that's pretty difficult for them. So now we're kind of going back, and I'm trying to look at different ways that I can reteach some of those. So we're looking at character traits and really pulling more information on those characters. And I think that, I know for sure that next year when I actually start teaching for 4th grade, instead of starting with summarizing, I'm going to start with character traits, so that they have a better understanding of the characters and who they are and how they change and grow over time. So when I start pulling in that plot, they can kind of start making some of those connections. So you really need to look at breaking down some of those standards. What are all of the different things that they need in order to be able to say that they understand this big overarching idea? And then at the same time, if that's still a struggle, take them back a grade level and figure it out, see where they needed to be on that last grade level. And if that's where you need to start, then that's probably where you need to go, if that helps any. Let's see. Will you do more of these teacher chats? I don't know. We'll see how you guys like them. I'm not sure yet. I hear that you're saying about doing your best, but what about the Danielson Framework? Okay. Is this the Pennsylvania Danielson? I'm still in the process of learning that framework, to be totally honest. Again, I mean, I look at what my kids need, to be honest. I honestly don't know a ton about the framework. I have learned bits and pieces about the framework. And when you really look at it, I think I remember specifically, like, it talks a lot about what is the student objective. What else does it talk about? And I'm sorry, April, I wish I could give you more on that one, but I just don't know enough about that framework in general. So if I remember correctly, when the meetings that I have gone to talking about that Danielson framework, everything that I'm doing in my classroom, I'm still meeting it. So I'm still meeting that criteria. It's just I'm doing it with lots of different groups, if that makes any sense. Do you usually have to deal with picky parents or disrespectful parents? How do you do it? You're going to have parents that like you, and you're going to have parents that don't like you. I mean, I think there was at one point, like, I feel like Ron Clark had said this too, you know, like, there are parents that like him and there are parents that don't like him. I mean, even Oprah Winfrey had parents that like her, and there are parents who don't like her. When you're dealing with someone's child, you're going to have parents who are going to be outspoken, and they're going to tell you what they think, and they have every right. That's their child. That's their baby. You know, if it was my child, I would express my feelings and my thoughts about my child very much. So I try to, and I'm going to teach you guys this because I thought that this was brilliant. And I learned it when I was a manager for Red Lobster. So I used to work at Red Lobster a long, long, long time ago. So when I was a manager for Red Lobster, we talked about LEAP. So if you look at LEAP, it's LEAP, right? So the first one is listen. So you constantly listen, which a lot of the time we want to jump in and we want to start answering some of those concerns immediately. Don't do that. Like, you listen, you empathize. So you say, I'm so sorry. I completely understand how you feel. If this was in my situation, I would be the exact same way. So listen, empathize, apologize. Then you say, again, I'm sorry. And then you problem solve. And a lot of the times, instead of me trying to come up with a solution to the problem, I let them try to come up with a solution. So they feel a little bit more, they feel better about it. So I would say, okay, well, what is it that you would like for me to do in order to solve this issue? Because I do want to make you happy, and I want to make you feel comfortable and make sure that your child feels comfortable in my class. So LEAP, y'all, it's the best thing ever. Definitely try it out. Okay, let's see. I totally believe you know. Well, thank you. I'm struggling with the framework. Thank you for answering. Oh, well, I'm glad that I understand. And again, the education, they're going to have a ton of things that they're throwing out at you. And it is a lot. It is a ton of information. So I get it. I totally understand. And you're going to be fine. You know, once you start really developing yourself as a teacher, you're going to figure out that everything that you're doing in your classroom, you're still meeting it at the exact same time. And again, with that framework, don't try to do all of it at once. You are going to burn yourself out if you do all of it at once. If you want to focus more on, okay, making sure I add the student objective, that's what you need to focus on, that for that, month or 2 months. Focus on something small and then continuously add something. Pirate video. I'm going to film the kind of me talking about it, because y'all, when I filmed this pirate video, okay, when I actually filmed it on Pirate Day, I was super excited. Like, when I say I was super excited, like, I'm looking back and I said, oh, Bridget, you need to calm down, because I had a little bit too much energy that day. So I'm going to kind of film how did I go about creating the Pirate Day? What were some things that I did during the Pirate Day and how it all went? So more of like here's how I did it, here's why I did it, and here's my reflection on it, and then post that this week. So I'm gonna actually film my sit down part tomorrow. So sorry about that. I know you guys have been waiting about it. Can you do another lesson planning video? So I know a ton of you love my lesson planning videos. Here's the deal with my lesson planning videos. I'm going to try and do some. I have different ideas for my lesson planning videos, so I will let you know, because one, it is very, very, very time consuming. If you were to look at how I actually plan, I plan bit by bit by bit by bit, like throughout the week. So on Monday, I may only look at planning my morning message. On Tuesday, I look at planning one group. On Wednesday, I look at planning another group. I don't really do all of it in one chunk, just because it would take me forever. So I will try, and then I will definitely share some of those out, but I can't give you a for sure yes or no, because I'm bad at keeping promises. Like, I just can't keep promises very well. So I'm sorry. Let's see. What is some advice that you give for student teachers? Ooh, this is a good one. Advice for student teachers. So I would sit back and I would look at some of the student teachers that would come into our schools when I was in kindergarten. And I would say, one, be very, very professional, like dress extremely professional. I would have some teachers coming in with jeans. I would have other teachers coming in with very short, low cuts. Be very, very professional. Two, I will try to stand out and try to work as hard and push yourself and take initiative. People like to see others take initiative. Also take criticism very well. Criticism is a huge part of it, because, again, you don't know what you're doing wrong until somebody tells you that you're doing wrong. So I was always in the, okay, well, what did I do? Well, how can I make this better? And what are your suggestions? What do you think? What do you think? I was constantly trying to get feedback from a ton of different perspectives, because I wanted to make sure that I was doing what I needed to do. And then two, I was also trying to make myself better. So definitely try and, one, be professional in your dress and attire. Be professional in the way that you act. Be positive. Like, if you're in the hallway, I don't care how stressed out you are, if you smile, you constantly smile. Just put a smile on your face and just be happy all the time, because that's going to show other teachers around you and the principal and the vice principal how positive you really are. So constantly smile. It's good for you. What are some strategies to support struggling readers in primary, like guided reading and whole group scaffolding? That is a really chock-full answer. And I may actually try to do a video on something like that, because there is a ton of information that you could do. So if they're struggling reading, there's a lot of different things that you have to kind of think about. Is it because they don't know their sight words? Is it because they don't know their letters and sounds? Is it because they don't know how to blend? Is it because they don't have one-to-one yet? It's a ton of different things that are kind of going into play on that. So you really have to get to know your kids. Do some of those basic assessments of, are they having their concepts of print down? Do they have that down? Do they have their letters and sounds down? Are the books that you're giving them, are they very basic? And those tend to be like 3, 4, 5 words within a sentence, 1 line per page, very, very basic type sentences. And then, are you also scaffolding them whenever you are in their guided reading? So meaning, if I was to take out a book, I wouldn't say, okay guys, let's go in and let's read this book now. No, you have to do some things before that. You sit there and you talk about the cover and you say, what do you think is happening in this cover? What do you see that's going on in this cover? Well, what do you think this is? Asking some of those questions and then going through like a picture walk and taking them through every page and really having them discuss and tell you about what's going on in the pages, because that's the way for them to be able to make some of those connections too. And then what I would even do after that is on like sentence strips, I would write out some of those sentences from that text. And we would talk about some of those words. Well, what word is this? What word is this? If I had this word and it's what word is that? So having them do that and then having them build some of those sentences together. I see a dog, and then scramble it up and you say, a dog, see, does that make sense? And they'll say no, and they'll put it right back together. So there's a ton of different strategies, and I know I have more, but it would be a ton. So I'm going to write that one down and actually make sure that I do some other type of video on that. Okay, last question. I'm going to do, let's see. Okay, best advice, and I think I actually did that one, best advice for student teachers. I already did that one. Do you have a funny teaching story? That is the best way to end it. I love that question. Okay, yes, let me tell you my story. Did I already tell this story? If I already told this story and you know it, I'm so sorry, but it is so funny. Okay, so I have tons of poop stories because I was in kindergarten. And I was teaching a lesson one day, and we were in a whole group. And so I told my kids, okay, and I kept smelling it, and I was like, I know there's something. I know someone has pooped, but I'm not going to say anything out loud because I don't want to hurt their feelings, and I don't want to make them nervous. There's no way I want to talk about, try to share it out with the class. So I'm going to be very, secretive about it, and I'm just going to go about the room. Okay, so I tell them to all go back on their writing and start working on their writing. So everybody's working on their writing, and I'm like, I smell it. I smell it. Did somebody fart? It can't, it just cannot just be a fart. If farts don't linger this long, there's no way. So I kept going, and I could not find it. I just couldn't. I just was having the hardest time. I kept walking around, and I couldn't figure out where it was going. And it was intense. It was that, everybody open the windows, open the air it out. I need fans type of, it was so bad. So I walked out to my teacher that was next door to me, and I said, will you please go into my room, and can you just walk around and figure out if you can figure out where that smell is coming from, because I can't figure it out. So she comes back out of my room after 15 seconds, finds it like that, super quick, comes out in 15 seconds, and she was like, okay, so she's sitting down, and it's all over your chair, and it's all over her hands, and it's all over her desk and her notebook. She was like, so she doesn't want to get up. And I was like, oh no, she needs to get up. We need to get her out of the classroom. So finally I had to go and get the nurse, and the nurse came and got her, and the nurse took her and tried to get her cleaned up. And I literally threw everything away. It was the biggest mess ever. So funny day I'll never forget. But yes, if you have not already answered any of the polls that were up there, you can answer some of those polls that are out. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time out to spend some time with me and ask questions, and I really love hearing from all of you. So I hope that this was a valuable thing for you. I hope that you guys enjoyed it and got some really good information from it. For all of you student teachers out there, best of luck to you. Stay positive, and just work. Work. That is what's going to put you ahead in life, and give it your all, definitely. So thank you again so much for kind of tuning in with me and spending a little bit of your Saturday with me, and I hope that you guys have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll talk to you guys really soon. Bye!